St. Julian of Norwich, remembered 8th of May. Many of the details about the life of Julian of Norwich are uncertain. She was an anchorite in St. Julian's Church in Norwich. An anchorite was someone who had chosen to live a life withdrawn from the world, in prayer, usually based in a room attached to a church with 3 windows, one to look into the body of the church, one to the altar, and one to the outside. She would have communicated with the rest of the world only through a small window or door. Julian, who may have taken her name from the church she lived in, lived at a time of great turmoil, seeing the Black Death kill half of Norwich's population, and the city overrun by rebels during the peasants' revolt. Although removed from the world, Julian was frequently visited, and people from all walks of life sought her advice and her prayers. Julian wrote Revelations of Divine Love, the earliest surviving book written by a woman in English. Its most famous phrase, "All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well," has entered common usage. This book tells the story of her life, and how she had seen in it the love of God. May 1373 was a troubled time, as much as any. Somewhere in East Anglia, a young woman lay dying, her mother and her priest watching by her bedside. Julian of Norwich, as she would later become known, was 30 years old, and her life had been lived in a time of plague and conflict. During her childhood, the Black Death had raged through Europe. England was at war with France, and political and social unrest were brewing. At only 30, she believed that her own life was over, though she felt she had so much left to do and to accomplish. Despite all expectations, she did not die. Instead, as her body ached and her sight failed, she received a series of visions, revelations of love in the very darkest moments of her suffering. At first was an image of living physical pain at its most intense and visceral, Christ bleeding and dying on the cross, which Julian also understood to be at the same time an image of the most powerful expression of love. Interpreting those visions, working out how to put them into words that could communicate their meaning, was to be her life's work from that day on. She wrote and rewrote, weighing up her words, despite knowing that many people would prefer that a woman should not write about her thoughts or experiences at all. But, she says, "For I am a woman, should I therefore believe that I should not tell you the goodness of God, since I saw in that same time it is his will that it be known." Julian never mentions the troubles of her day, but she can't have been unaware of them. As an anchoress, she had chosen to live in a single room attached to a church, devoting herself to prayer and meditation, in one sense cutting herself off from the world. But this solitary vocation was not lived out in a lonely wilderness far from human society. She resided in one of England's busiest cities, to which visitors and news from Europe regularly travelled. From her cell, the sound of the city outside could be heard, the bustling life of a medieval parish church going on just next door. She also had visitors, who sought out the counsel of a wise woman known to be expert in spiritual matters, as one visitor described her. That dual existence, close to the world, but not bound to it, was an anchorite's special vocation, and it shaped how Julian understood the message of her visions. To her, it was crucially important to say that God was not detached from everyday life, but present in all that she calls homely, in the ordinary and familiar, the domestic sphere, or the bond between a mother and her child. All those things can offer glimpses of goodness, comfort dwelling alongside labour and pain. Julian believing that the maternal relationship is the only earthly relationship that comes close to the relationship a person can have with Jesus. Julian is most famous for her faith in God's words to her. Sin is cause of all this pain, but all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. People often quote this without the reference to pain and sin, which she defines simply as all that is not good. Yet for Julian they can't be separated. For her, consolation only has meaning because it takes pain seriously. From her tiny cell, in which the suffering world was largely invisible to her, she developed a theology of pain, not by reflecting on any particular cause of suffering, even her own, but by exploring how pain intersects with, or teaches us about, love. Pain is everywhere, but it is love, she believed, that is unconquerable. He said not, she reported, "Thou shalt not be tempested, thou shalt not be travailed, thou shalt not be diseased," but he said, "Thou shalt not be overcome." Most of her work deals with her understanding of God. She concentrates on the presence of sin in life, and despite Julian living in a time of turmoil, her theology was optimistic and spoke of God's omnibenevolence and love in terms of joy and compassion. Her work fell out of fashion, but has become increasingly popular in more recent times, and received renewed interest during lockdown. This is because Julian is able to offer an insight on isolation and turmoil in God's creation without losing sight of God's love and care. St. Julian of Norwich is remembered this Thursday, 8th of May.